Hello, EnderSword here again with another replay, this time from the Gold League. We're focusing on the Terran Flawio, as well as his opponent, the Protoss Balrog. We'll be looking from the Terran perspective today. The key issues that we're going to be considering are almost as always supply blocking yourself constantly and how to avoid that. How to avoid queuing up things and the detrimental problems that can arise from doing so. And one of the main focuses in this game will be having a plan B or a transition out of your original strategy if that were to happen to fail, which in this case, of course, it will. So how to have a backup plan and transition out before the actual failure occurs. To already be working on something. So those are the key things we'll be looking at today. Everything's starting out normal here so far. This SCV was waiting a little too long before it's able to put the barracks down. You want to get your very early timings a little crisper so that you're not just having an SCV sitting around, you're losing a little bit of mining time. It may not seem like a lot, but again, it does add up over the course of the game. So if you find yourself waiting for something, look at that build order again and say, well, maybe I should do it after an additional increment of supply. Maybe I should be sending that a little later. Maybe I should be starting that building a little sooner. Something like that so that you can get some of the kinks out of your build. Gas goes up, everything looks reasonably standard here. He's opted to wall off, continuing to make SCVs and queuing up that depot. We do again see little bits of a gap in the production of SCVs at the command center. This early on in the game, there's not really a lot to focus on here, so that shouldn't be an issue. He was waiting up there saving up to make this into an orbital, but there would have easily been room to shove in an SCV there. You don't want those gaps, and you don't ever want a point where things are just waiting for something to happen. You want that to be a lot smoother so that you're actually going from one thing to the next a little more consistently. So that mule comes down, second barracks is started. Given how quickly this barracks went up, it would have been nice to see a Marine or something come out of there prior to the tech lab, but that's a very small point and another small little kink in what he was doing. SCV scouting here is a bit late. It doesn't really begin the scouting till about 3:30. That means that if, in this case, it is the case, if you do end up scouting your opponent's base last, you're getting there pretty late. So if there was any early aggression or anything like that, then often you won't catch it. If he was doing some sort of cannon rush, if he had two proxy gateways out on the map or something like that, you could be caught unaware by that and by just not choosing to scout so late, basically. So it's something that you should be aware of when you're sending your first worker out to take a look around. See SCV production going okay here. We've got 3 barracks going down, tech lab, reactor. It looks like we're certainly going to be making a bio army here today, and we'll see how good the production is out of these facilities as the game progresses. A lot of players, as we've seen before, have left a lot of these structures idle. So far, we're not seeing that as the case. As these units, or as these buildings are being constructed, they are being put into use fairly quickly, which is good for this early game play. We're getting those add-ons, getting units out, whatever you may think of the strategy, at least it's being executed in some semblance of a correct way. However, we hit that first kink that inevitably happens. It's very early on to be having this supply block occurring. And at that time, we now know there's a reactor barracks and 2 tech lab barracks in addition to a command center. But only one supply depot is made initially in response to that supply block. A mere 3 seconds after it's done, we're already at 42 of 43 and starting another one again. There are times like this where you simply have to be pulling off another SCV to be making 2 supply depots at once, 3 supply depots at once, to make sure that you're staying ahead of it. Again, this one completes, immediately starting another, and at each point in this progression, we've been supply blocked at these barracks, and we've been not producing SCVs due to those supply blocks. It may look to Flawio as if he doesn't have the money to pull off someone to produce that additional supply depot. But if we were to look at these barracks during one of the supply block periods, which should be coming up obviously again shortly, we'll see that he's actually got units queued up in them at those times, which are consuming 100 minerals per marauder, or 100 minerals for every 2 marines, which could have been dumped into supply depots, could have been dumped into getting this geyser, could have gotten you a factory, could have gotten you another command center. As we see here again, queued up, and not only building one of them. So as the army moves out here, we're completely supply blocked, and that is a problem. And not only are we supply blocked, but we're tying up these minerals, 200, 250, 300 minerals. And we've got 400 here. That could have easily been another command center so that you're expanding behind this attack. That could have easily been more production facilities so that you're supporting this attack and reinforcing it. And it certainly could have been more supply depots going down than one at a time. Now on the attack itself, one thing to be aware of as a Terran against Protoss, or anyone versus Protoss, look out for this little blur. There is a little blur following your army, and it has been following the army for about 4 minutes. It was completely aware that this was going to happen, completely aware that that's the army that was coming. It was able to tech to exactly what the Protoss player wanted, and that force field went down in an absolutely perfect time because he could see everything that was going on. Just dropping a scan or being aware that that is there can save you a lot of heartache, because this somewhat surprise, sneaky route around the back here was completely useless, since they could see everything that was going on. Again, as Flawio, obviously this is cloaked, but you can still see that blur there. So just always be looking out for that. It's something that you should be expecting, so look for it and make sure that you're catching it. Now, I was talking earlier about transitioning out. We now see a command center going down behind a failed attack. We now see an engineering bay added. We now see a Vespian geyser added behind a failed attack. You actually want to be seeing those things going on during the attack, just before that attack, so that you're doing things behind that aggression. In this case, it wasn't much of an attack anyway, but it's certainly intended to be. So you want to be ready, that you're not falling back after a failed attack, and then not only supply blocking yourself again, but you're now investing a lot of your money into your economy and tech again, because very often the response to your failed attack is going to be aggression by the other side, which is exactly what we're seeing. So you don't want to be caught at a point that you're expanding, that you're teching, that you're doing any of those things when someone comes in for that counterattack. We see the Ghost Academy, again, there's just more tech added on. This was put there presumably just for this missile turret. No upgrades were being done. That's interesting. And this Ghost Academy being added. One theme to this as well is that scouting is not being done very well. There was just that initial push in. There's no attempt to control these watchtowers, which is being controlled by Balrog. He's got pretty good situational awareness of what's happening. This turret just took down that observer for the first time. Up until now, he's completely aware of every single thing that is happening in this game. It's pretty late to be going into a factory, and basically, although the supplies look fairly even, just due to passivity, you've got Flawio fairly behind in this game. Here the actual engagement occurs, stim happens, some good force fields go down, pushing them to the outside. Even still, I think with slightly better micro and charging quickly towards those Colossi, which didn't have range, they could have probably been taken out, and he could have won that engagement. But that's not actually what happened. And Flawio ends up losing this game and just leaving this game without putting up too much of a fight there. So again, to recap the three main points in this, there was supply blocking throughout that game, which is very, very detrimental. If that hadn't occurred and production had continued, again, he's got the money to support that at all times during this game. If that production had been able to continue, that would have simply been an overwhelming force of that bio army, and that attack never would have succeeded in breaking through to this natural. And he would have been a lot healthier and probably could have turned that around and won the game. The other thing was queuing up production. Right now looks okay, but beware that when you're supply blocking yourself, when you're queuing things up, you're spending the minerals. It at least appears that they are spent. So then when you look at your resources, it looks like you can't afford to do the next thing you want it to do, when in fact you can. You're just tying it up in something else. So try and stay ahead of that at all times. And then the biggest flaw probably in this game is that you need to have a plan B and be doing something behind what you're doing. This expansion needed to be going down a lot quicker. When that first force moved out, that command center should have begun construction. These other tech paths should have begun prior to that. You can't just put all your eggs in one basket, or else it becomes very much an all-in, which is not the intention of Flawio here. It would have been a pretty bad all-in. So you have to know what you're doing, get some of that scouting information so that you know which way you want to go with your army, tech, and economy afterwards, but get that done before your attack fails, not after it fails, or else you're just sitting out there saying, what do I do now? And it's a little too late and the enemy's already mounting up on your front door. So those are the three things to look at here when you analyze your own replays. I'll be doing a few more of these. I think I'll go back to a bronze game for our next match to take a look at the fairly low-level stuff. Again, I appreciate any comments anyone's leaving, and let me know if you have a replay that you'd like analyzed as well.